everything for the battery plant and for the R&D center which they are setting up. These
Okay.
will be two big investment areas for Suzuki going forward in India because both the R&D company which they have set up and the
Okay.
battery plant are going to take a large part of the resources. That is one of the reasons why, Sharmishta,
Huh.
we are not even looking at the option of further expansion in capacity being done by Suzuki because
Okay.
they have
Okay.
the hands full with two big projects separately.
Okay. Okay. Sir, and sir, the alliance with Toyota, that's between Toyota and Suzuki at the global level,
Yeah,
but there is a cross production of vehicles which happen. So, would that mean that there would be any changes required in the kind of supply or sourcing
nothing,
arrangements
nothing.
you have?
That agreement is not being touched in any manner.
Okay.
And that agreement provides for an exchange of parts and products between Toyota and Suzuki and Maruti.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharmishta. Yuthika, please come forward and ask your question. Yuthika,
Hi, sir.
please ask
Yeah.
your question.
Hi,
Yeah.
sir. Sir, I just want to check what will happen with the employees. Will they be moved to Maruti Suzuki? How will that arrangement work?
Once we acquire the shares, yes, the employees will become employees of the Maruti company there.
Was that clear, Yuthika? Can you
Yes,
hear us?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Yuthika. I'll request Swaraj. He also had a question. Please come forward, Swaraj. Ask your question.
Yeah, my question was on the battery
Battery.
plant itself, which was asked earlier. I'll come back in the queue for other questions that I have. I have a couple of more of them. I'll once this is finished, I'll come back in the queue.
Sure. Thanks. I'll request Sumantra. Sumantra, please come forward and ask your question.
Thank you, Neja, for the opportunity. Bhargav-san, pardon me, I'm in the move, so there may be a little bit of ambient noise. Uh, Sir, just wanted to understand once this whole integration process is completed and little later, once the new plant also comes up, is in Haryana, what percentage of Suzuki's global production would be based out of India? And secondly, is there any kind of thought process or discussion regarding any possible modification in the ownership of the R&D joint venture in Gujarat for mutual gains or for better efficiency or maybe, some other gains?
I'll request Takuchi-san to comment on the percentage share of Suzuki because I'm not sure what Suzuki's production will be 5, 6 years from today and how much would be in India production and how much will be Japan production. Takuchi-san, you might have a better idea. I don't know. But
I don't have exact number for the 5 years from now. The number in during the year 22-23, the world production of Suzuki Group globally is 3.21 million units, and out of that, the India production represent about over 1.9 million, which is nearly 60% of the global, production volume.
okay, if I had to make a guess, and I'm repeating, it's a guess, it's not at all an authentic figure. If I have to make a guess that if we add another million at Kharkhoda, then probably this 60% will go up to maybe 65 or 68 or maybe even 70%. Because I don't think the global production would increase by anywhere near the same level of production volumes, excluding India.
I see. I see. Thank you for that. And any thought process on the ownership structure of the modification of ownership structure of the joint venture, or is maybe too early to contemplate on that?
So ownership of which joint venture?
For the R&D organization in Gujarat?
Gujarat doesn't have an R&D organization. Are you talking Suzuki is the R&D company?
Yes.
Suzuki's R&D company is a 100% Suzuki-owned company. And I think they are acquiring land somewhere this side, not in Gujarat.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Thanks.
welcome.
Thanks, Sumanta. May I request Bala Chandrasan, please come forward, ask your question. So can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, I'm asking Bala-san, can you
Okay,
hear us? Okay, maybe some audio issue. I'll request Jagannathan-san to please come forward and ask his question. I think I could not read the question properly from the chat box. Sir, if you could please come forward and ask your question.
Oh, Balachandra is on the audio. I, Jagannathan says I don't have a mic.
Oh. Actually, he doesn't have a mic. So I'll read it out, sir. How will...
He can
Yeah.
type his question. I mean,
Yeah, it's there,
says,
sir. Yeah.
Balachandran says, here's my question.
Yes.
I can read the question on the screen.
How will the manufacturing operations be reorganized post this deal?
I'm not sure what reorganization we are thinking of, but because as far as I can see, the production is exactly on the same lines as we do in Maruti. There's not much difference in organizing the production. But in any case, you have to wait for the deal to complete. It's several months away yet. So let's wait for the deal to be completed. But the production system in Maruti Suzuki is also devised essentially from Suzuki. And Gujarat production is also Suzuki or devised. So I don't see that there will be any significant kind of differences between the production system, which would require a lot of changes or reorganization, anything like that. Taki-san, would I be right in that?
If I can add something to Mr. Bhargava's comment, that I think the market situation is changing very rapidly these days, and we have to cater for the changing needs of the market. So sometimes we need to change the production factory or production capacity of some certain models to be increased or to be decreased, or that sort of adjustment we have to do, and we have to speed up all the process. So if and when SMG will become a part of whole MSIL production system, then I think we can speed up all the process to adjust ourselves to the ever-changing needs of the market.
Okay. Who's next?
Sir. I don't see any other new questions, sir.
I saw something on the screen, something from
Honda Element.
Nikkei-san, yes, there's a question from Hanada-san. Does Maruti consider to unify R&D operation of Maruti and Suzuki R&D Center India? That's from Hanada-san, Nikkei.
Suzuki's R&D company is a separate company. It has just recently been set up. I don't think there's any question about unification or anything like that.
Sorry, in my understanding, so as you have already mentioned, Suzuki R&D Center India is 100% owned by Japanese Suzuki, and so in my understanding, currently Maruti Suzuki and Suzuki separately operate the R&D Institute in India. And what I would like to ask is whether just as following today's announcement, does Maruti also think to acquire the R&D operation of Suzuki in India?
No, Maruti is acquiring the production facilities of SMGs. SMG is a purely contract manufacturing company.
Yeah, right. So this time is a manufacturing. I would like to ask about a future plan.
Future plan regarding?
R&D part. So, is there any some aim for?
Suzuki will conduct R&D all the newer technologies.
Mhm.
Maruti will conduct its R&D on vehicle development and the IC engines and the related technologies, which we will now have to increasingly introduce in ICE vehicles to meet the carbon and the regulatory requirements. I think both of these will continue independently. They are different areas of R&D because new technology, whether it is in battery technology or hydrogen technology or some other technology or related EV technology, and what you have to do with CNG and what you have to do with IC engines or improvement of IC, those are all very different technologies. It would not be wise to mix them up, I think.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Here's
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Balachandran.
Yeah, now Balachandra sir's question is, will you look at different locations in view of new powertrain technologies like EVs, hybrids, CNG and ethanol?
No, all these vehicles are produced in the existing facilities. We are expanding capacity in Kharkhoda, which will take us to 3 million. And as we have said, we are looking for another site where we'll add facilities which will take us to 4 million. And all these technologies, whether it relates to CNG or biogas or ethanol or whatever, they will all be produced in these locations for 4 million production. It's all part of the 4 million production.
Sure, sir. I'll now read out question from Mr. Jagannathan. If my understanding is right, the battery plant will be set up by Suzuki Japan. So Maruti Suzuki might buy that as well at a later date.
I'm not sure why if Suzuki wants to sell and at that time we want to buy. This is a purely hypothetical question for the future. The battery plant is yet in the process of being set up.
Sure, sir.
Bhargav-san, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Ranendra, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah. Bhargav-san, I just wanted to understand, once this agreement is done, and SMG becomes MSIL, so just like Maruti Suzuki, then Maruti Suzuki will pay the royalty to SMC Japan then? Just
We
like,
are already paying royalty.
no, from once the SMG is
Yeah, we are already
merged
paying
into,
royalty on what is produced in SMG.
okay,
So we are selling the
that
cars.
doesn't have a separate,
No, they don't. The royalty is done by us, not by them.
okay.
Thanks, Ronnie. Alicia, you have a follow-up question. Please come forward and ask your question.
All right, so I wanted to understand if there is any capacity expansion that could be planned at the SMG factory as well. And this is as part of the 1 million that you talked about putting up.
SMG land where we are today and where we have capacity of 3 plants of 250 each. I don't think there is scope for adding very much capacity there. Like you say, we can't add capacity there, can we? At the SMG
Uh,
site today? No.
we may be able to increase a bit, but big expansion due to the limitation of the land space is not possible.
Some small increases can be made, you're saying.
Mhm.
But no, that 1 million cannot be located there, that's for sure.
But a part of that could be done at SMG.
Would be very small. You can't put up, for 1 million, you need 4 plants. and you can't do a one third of a plant or something like that. So I think it's really not much a serious issue.
Right.
Wherever we find the next site, we will put up four plants, 1 million.
Right, sir. And if I could just ask, sir, you've addressed it before, but exactly the timing of this move now, because when Suzuki stepped in to set up this factory, Maruti Suzuki wanted to invest more on the dealer showrooms side of things. That has that changed now, and is your priority to just streamline manufacturing now that you have these different vehicle technologies coming up? Do you think it would have complicated supply chains perhaps also if there were different managements governing these two factories? If you could speak to that, what changed at this point in time?
Supply chains we have been doing anyway.
Hmm.
Supply chain management has really been under Maruti. Suzuki has been, SMG has been buying from Maruti vendors. And the investments in marketing and sales and all of that infrastructure will continue to be made as before because as we increase our production, we will need to have a servicing and sales infrastructure which matches what our increased production is going to be. So we can't neglect that or that can't go out of sync with the production.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Alicia. So there's a follow-up question from Swaraj. If you can hear us, please come forward, ask your question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Just in addition to that, I wanted to ask about the composition that the Indian market is now made of the passenger vehicle market. If you see that we have not seen any launches as such from manufacturers in the sub 4 meter category. It's only Maruti who is very strong and has done launches in that segment. Even Toyota has not done much in that segment. Would you, sir, believe that the sub 4 meter rule that the government had introduced has it outlived its validity? What is the way ahead? Should the government be looking at now that we are getting more and more about talking more and more about emission norms, safety norms? Should the taxation be more on those parameters rather than the size of the length of the vehicle?
My view is that we cannot at all afford to ignore the sub 4 meter customer. The sub 4 meter customer is the base which provides the customers for vehicles which are more sophisticated and bigger. People have to move up from the two-wheeler segment. Two-wheeler segment is a huge segment in India. They need a safer means of transport. And therefore, the sub 4 meter segment was introduced by Maruti and continued to do well and still does well. I think we are selling 800,000 vehicles in that category. How much is it in sub 4 meter? I think something like that. And it's not a small number, and it's still providing affordable transport to a large number of people in this country. It's not a segment which can just be ignored and the taxation increased or whatever you're trying to say, Swaraj. I think this segment requires special attention because to make these vehicles safer and to comply with regulations, we have had to make investments, we have had to add cost. That is why the sales have slowed down or stagnated, and that is why other companies have gone out of this segment. But that doesn't take away the importance of this segment and the need for this segment in a country like India, which has a large and very diversified kind of population. So certainly we should continue with what is we are doing in terms of EVs and other things and regulatory changes. But simultaneously, we should also see what we can do to provide transport for the people who can't afford the more expensive vehicles.
So just one last question. Maybe Ajay San can come in. The ASPs for the quarter have not changed much year on year. So how has margins played out for the company during the quarter, and what is the outlook for Q2? And lastly, what is the outstanding bookings the company has?
So ASPs were up for compared to the last year same quarter. Last quarter one, we had the domestic models ASP was 4,76,000. Now it is 5,33,000. It's also shade up from quarter four, but yes, not significantly up because as we mentioned earlier, till about quarter one, we had this problem of semiconductors, and therefore we could not have the right mix that we would have desired to sell. So there will, I think the ASP will continue to rise as the mix improves in the subsequent quarters. That's one. And the margins, you've already seen that the margins were up against the last year same quarter. We were at about 7.2. Also, there is an exception of about 80 basis points in the results because some expenses are not recurring in nature. So that will play up in the subsequent quarters. And we'll continue to endeavor to work towards our goal of, cost reduction and, all the other areas that efforts of material cost reduction, etc., that we work on. So that will continue in the same spirit. But there are certain factors which you cannot control. So we'll have to keep a watch on them, which involves commodity, forex. Although keep a watch on them.
And regarding your question on pending orders, they're about 355,000 at quarter end and about 357,000 currently. Almost the same.
Okay, thank you so much and all the best.
Thanks, Raj. May I now request Ketan to come forward and ask his question?
Thank you for taking my question. Just curious, Gujarat, SMG Gujarat were to have two different phases and there were two different land parcels. It was supposed to be in total about 1.5 million units when it was envisaged. You are at 7.5 lakh now. Just an update on the second phase, which was to be kicked in. And Bhargav-san mentioned that, the additional 2 million were to come and will come. So does that second land parcel that Maruti Suzuki had, or rather Suzuki Motor Gujarat had acquired, now does that become part of the plan? What happens to the next phase of SMG, which never was implemented?
No, the problem there, Ketan, is that the second block of land which we had planned required a certain amount of land to be bought.
Okay.
And it was private land. And that has run into a lot of legal and other problems about buying the land. And we could not do the second phase of the expansion there at all. That is why the existing site, only one phase of the Gujarat project was actually implemented. The second phase, which we had thought at that time, which we had talked about, that Gujarat will go up to 1.5, has not been implemented, could not be done because of all these land-related issues.
Okay. Okay. So now SMG coming under MSIL.
That second part of the Gujarat thing, which we had originally talked about then in 2014-15,
right?
That you can take it, that's off.
Okay.
And that is being replaced by the 1 million which we are looking for the new site.
Got it.
In a sense, it is, yes, still doing what we had planned then, but not the way it was planned then.
Right. I get it. I get it. Just a question on the electrification and the way ahead. Mr. Bhargav, you mentioned that now it will allow Maruti Suzuki to evolve its workforce and the manufacturing system to with time to be ready for the electric vehicle journey. What is the current status? Where are we in terms of the EV factory and what's the rollout plan there like?
The EV plan is going according to schedule what was planned. The first vehicle is to be launched in 24-25. I think that schedule holds firm completely.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll come back in the queue. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Ketan. May I request Murli-san to ask his question? And if you have any audio issue, then I will read out the question. Yes, please ask your question.
He says, please read it.
Okay. Would you need to pay the same amount as royalty even after acquiring Gujarat plant?
Yes. The royalty doesn't change. It was always part of our plan. What we're doing is not no different. SMG was a contract manufacturer. It was manufacturing as if the facility was 100% Maruti's facility, except that it was owned and operated by somebody. But everything which they were doing in SMC was according to our requirements. And the vehicles were the same as we were making at times elsewhere. It's the same vehicles which Suzuki had licensed to us. And the royalty was related to that. It has nothing to do with SMG, the royalty.
Sir, we have a last question. This is the last question. This is from Hanada-san. Does Maruti disclose the purchase value of SMG?
Once the method of purchase and the purchase has been approved by the shareholders, the value of the purchase will certainly be known. I mean, there's no way of keeping it quiet once you know how you're buying it.
Thank you. But is it impossible for Maruti to disclose the expected amount of the purchasing of the stake of the SMG?
At this stage, we can only say that the contract manufacturing agreement provides that Maruti will acquire the shares at the book value of SMG. That book value at last known was how much, Ajay? 11,000 something?
12,755.
About 12,000 crores.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was the last question, and I don't see any new questions, sir. So, with your due permission, shall we close the press conference?
Yes, if there are no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, everyone, for joining us at a very short notice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.